go! Here we go! Here we go!
We're gonna have a fiery Sterling today.
Well, no, you just have a big old air horn, and anytime a Packers fan tries to talk, you just hit the button and drown them out. Like, no, I can't hear you. Go Bears.
It's basically the la 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 la.
Yeah, exactly. Right? You don't even have to live there. You can do it from here. Just remote control everything. Yeah, I'm pissed off, man. Fuck the NFL at this point.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 1IQ Football Talk podcast. Brendan and Sterling coming at you with yet another week of conversation. Sterling, how you doing today, my friend, on this kind of semi-sunny, semi-dark Saturday here in our beautiful city?
I'm doing all right. You know, it's still warmish out, but yeah, weather is what it is. We need the rain when it comes anyway, so I have no problem with that. A little bit of sunshine, but good. Just chilling for the weekend. Busy work week for me, so I was good and tired. But yeah, not a whole lot going on in the world of NFL, unfortunately. So you know, I'm sure it'll be quick little rants from us and then into our fantasy previews. But how's your week been?
Busy. Very, very, very busy. As you are well aware, stuff outside that can't really control, but busy, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad, but we're here talking some football. Like what you were saying, there's not a ton of great information. Again, you'll see clips from OTAs and this, that, and the other thing. I know last week when we were chatting, it was, I was bringing up the mention that, Caleb Williams had a rough day on 7-on-7, and half the fan base of the Chicago Bears fandom started losing their minds. And yesterday he had a really good day where he went 13 for 15 and had like a long extended drive, and everyone's going like, we're gonna win the Super Bowl. I was like, guys, last week you were literally sitting there screaming bloody murder because he had himself a bad day. Like, this fan base, my friend, is just one of those things where it just goes and it's just a nightmare to be a part of, because you're like, I almost feel embarrassed being a part of it, because I'm like, let's let him play a game first, guys, before we make anything positive or negative. I know I was one of the biggest people that went out there and said we need to go get Caleb Williams. We need to move on from just because it, like, let's give him time to figure some stuff out. Yet he's not even in full pads.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just crazy. Honestly, the Steelers fan base is similar, and for the most part, I try to avoid what the fan base is saying about stuff, because so many of them are just endlessly negative. You know, they just shit on everything, but then turn around and go, well, I'm a diehard Steelers fan. It's like, well, no, you just like to bitch. You know, like, luckily so far through OTAs for Pittsburgh, it's been a lot of upbeat reports, a lot of good news so far. You know, Justin Fields has had some good days in OTAs with Pittsburgh. There's even more rumblings and rumors going around about him being a occasional kick returner this upcoming season, which is amusing. And Troy Fautanu has been doing really well at his switch from left tackle to right tackle. The rest of the offensive linemen have all been giving him props and giving him tips and saying how he's been doing so good for a rookie switching to that position, switching positions that quickly. It's looking good. You know, a lot of the players are coming out too going, we like the fact that we're going into this season knowing what our offense is supposed to look like. We know what our offensive coordinator is expecting from us. We know what style of play we're going to be doing. Whereas last year, the last 3 years, week to week, none of the players really knew what to expect from their coach. You know, and that's not good. When you're getting into that huddle and you're all going, okay, what's he gonna call now? What do we got to do? It's not a good thing. You know,
when you see him walking out onto the practice field with sharpened crayons, you are in for a rough practice.
Yeah.
It was.
It's been a lot of good news for Steelers fans at the OTAs, and I like to see that, because we've had a a lot of years lately, probably the last 5 or 6, where there's always something really bad going on at OTAs. Either somebody doing a holdout, or people bitching about Matt Canada, or just something. There's always been something.
Yeah, and like I said, for me, I've always been the type of person that looks at it and goes, I'm not going to really read into anything until we start to get into training camp, and then we start to get the full padded practices, because that's when it really starts to become football. Because
Yeah.
you can do practice in shorts and a t-shirt with the helmet on, but that's you can't really do anything. You can't put hands, like the linemen can't put hands on each other. The
Right?
DBs can't jam the receivers. So, you'll see clips
Exactly.
of
We could participate in that without getting hurt.
exactly, like we could participate in some drills and look good, where people would go like, "Holy shit, these two guys just out of nowhere are looking spectacular."
I don't know about good. Like I'd be serviceable, but I mean, I'd probably look more like another gibbled quarterback that came up lame this week during his OTAs that I think was interesting to see, and that was Aaron Rodgers. Did you see the news on him? That one day, they cameras on him. He goes over to the side, takes his shoe off, takes his sock off, and he's
Looking at
sitting there
his
examining that Achilles, but not the repaired Achilles, the other one, which is not a good sign for Jets fans. That has to have them extremely worried. And then
especially since
watching
they're
the footage
playing San
after that,
Francisco with Leonard Floyd, looking at it going like, I'll get the other one
right?
now.
And he's limping when he's trying to do those rollouts and stuff. Not good. I don't know. I don't know if we're ever going to see that same Aaron Rodgers again.
Which is a really damn shame. And I know, coming from a Chicago Bears fan, like, I know some people might just simply say and go like, oh, like, you don't mean that, like, what are you talking about? Like, no, I really do think it's a shame, because he really is one of the best quarterbacks we have ever been witness to see. And I would love to see him at his very, very best on a team that frankly has the makeup to potentially be a Super Bowl caliber roster, with the defense the way that it is, the offense with the offensive line that they've now put in there, some of the weapons like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall that they have there. It's set up for success. It's just the Jets doing Jets things and having some bad luck thrown in there as well with Aaron Rodgers.
Right. Well, and that's just it. Like they've been doing well at filling all of their other roles, but that quarterback position has been cursed for them for the longest time. They when they do go out and they try to draft a quarterback, they reach for somebody, they take somebody that everybody goes, why? Or else they're going after these veterans that are near the end of their lifespan in the NFL, and it doesn't end up working out. And I both feel for them and also don't, because fuck the Jets. But it's at some point you got to feel like they got to get a quarterback at some point.
Well, that's what
You know,
Bears
it,
fans have been feeling like for years and years and years and
yeah,
years, where it's just like we're gonna get it right eventually. Like, we all thought it was gonna be, Justin Fields, and now it's everyone thinks it's gonna be Caleb Williams. Even I am sitting back going like, it's gonna be really hard for them to screw up Caleb Williams. But there's a part of me that's in the back of my brain going, but they're gonna do it. You're never gonna
yeah,
have a good quarterback. It's always gonna be defense, defense, defense. But at least our general manager is pushing it in a way of going like, no, 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 offense. You need to score points to win games, guys. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I feel for Jets fans, because Bears fans have kind of been in that similar boat for a long, long time. But yeah, as someone who has watched Aaron Rodgers dominate my team, and just immediately them sending, or the Jets trading for him, going like, okay, like, here they go, and right down, it's like, oh, god damn
Right.
it, like,
Yeah. I mean, there's a small part of me that's hopeful that they'll be desperate enough and hit the panic mode button if that happens again, and
trade for
just be like, we
Justin
got to find
Fields.
another veteran quarterback, and we'll be like, here, have Russ, but give us a first. I know how ridiculous that sounds, but we've seen what the Jets do.
The Vikings traded a first round pick for Sam Bradford. So,
Right?
yeah,
Exactly. Crazier things have happened when a team is desperate. And then for us, it just becomes oh, okay, well, bye, Russ. there you go, Justin. You're in. It's your team now. Just as we planned, just as we drew it up.
Oh my god, that would be ridiculous. Some other things that came out. There's one thing that was a little bit more prominent. And then there's one thing that I just thought was silly and we have to talk about.
Yep.
The first one that's more prominent is that the Bears are going to be featured on Hard Knocks this
Yes.
coming year, which I have a lot of mixed feelings about because I like watching Hard Knocks. I watch it every single year. It's not something that I sit down and go, it's much watch television or any of that type of stuff. But, throughout the entirety of the off season, and I know the last couple years, the Bears have been rumored as a team that was going to be featured on Hard Knocks. And I've always said, I don't want to see my team on Hard Knocks. I would rather
Mhm.
watch someone else's team, like watch the Vikings, watch the Jets, watch the Lions, just because it's one of those things of where I kind of want to see someone else. I already get so much of it. It's going to be great. I'm going to be glued to it more this year than any other year, but it's one of those things where it's kind of mixed feelings of going like, this is great, but there's again that cynicism in the back of my mind as being one of the fans of this team going like, what stuff is going to come out that's just going to make this team look bad? We already know Eberflus is a fucking idiot on the microphone in a podium. So like, what is some of the shit that he's going to say when sitting down? And like, part of me is worried. It's worried. But
Yep.
yeah.
It's 100% justified, and like for me, I've never really watched the Hard Knock series. So it's out of my realm of caring. The only one I always thought was I liked when people were talking about if they're gonna do something like the Ravens or the Steelers, they really should just do a Hard Knocks for an entire division. Because that'll spread it out and it takes a little bit of the pressure off of each individual team. Because the downside that we do see is sometimes with all that extra attention on the team, it hinders their ability to grow. And so we have seen that in the past where it's almost like too much attention, so they're focusing too much on the cameras and not enough on the field.
Yeah, it's almost like trying to have a situation of where they're trying to make themselves and their brand look a little bit better
Yeah.
and trying to show up for the camera when in reality they should be trying to
Mhm.
show up for the actual performance. And, you know, I know a lot of people have been like, okay, well, it's going to be Hollywood Caleb coming out. And it's going to be, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case because whenever you listen to Caleb talk, he doesn't like the fame. He's just, I want to be a quarterback. Just let me be a quarterback, everyone, which is, it's very good and refreshing. But it is kind of one of those things where I'm like, like, God damn
Well,
it.
especially him, because he does enjoy the media a little bit.
Oh, without a doubt he does.
And so I could see him, enjoying that camera on him more a little too much. But I also think that might be why the NFL has chosen this, the Bears as their Hard Knocks, because it's a number one overall pick, Caleb Williams, so hyped up, so talked about, and he's comfortable with the cameras. And so that might be one where they're like, this is just an easy choice at this point.
I look at like when Hard Knocks was being talked about, like the Chicago Bears for Hard Knocks this year, it's honestly such a no-brainer. Because when you look at it, it's not like a team like your normal first overall pick team. It's
No.
not a team that was the worst in football. Last year, at the last half of this year since trade deadline, the Bears were one of the most exciting teams to watch. And you just happen to get this generationally talented guy who is so polarizing. And for a team that hasn't had a quarterback either like that or just in general, how do you not want to watch that? It's
Yeah.
like I hate to say it, but it's gonna be kind of be much watch television. And then not only
Yeah.
that, with the first overall pick, you draft him one of the best wide receivers to come out of the draft in Lord knows how many years.
Mhm.
And like it's gonna be much watch television. So like I said, I'm extremely excited for it, but I'm also going like the
I get
spotlights.
it. Just because you follow the Bears so heavily, a lot of it is going to be stuff that you see anyway. And that's just the tough thing being a fan of the team that's on Hard Knocks. If you're a hardcore fan and you're following everything that goes on anyway, Hard Knocks isn't going to be quite as surprising and entertaining for you.
I think for me the only reason I'm a little hesitant towards it is because I don't want it's going to be a lot of judgment coming towards the Bears,
Yeah.
and there's going to be stuff that even Bears fans, it's almost going to have like a little bit of a civil war too coming out potentially. Just like
Mhm.
I don't think that stuff will happen, but I know there's going to be, for me it's too many eyes on my team. I would prefer it to
Yeah.
not have the eyes on them right now, just because with the way this offseason has been, it's been the Chicago Bears offseason, and
Yeah.
it's been the entire focus. And I think it's just I was kind of worn out from all of this of going like, oh, who are the Bears going to sign in free agency? Are they going to keep Justin Fields? Are they going to draft like this and that? And it just kind of got exhausting of everyone talking about the Bears. And it's going to be a point where I think a lot of fans of other teams are going to go, we get it. They had the first overall pick. We don't need to
Yeah.
you don't need to keep shoving them down our throats. And like I would be surprised if a lot of people don't get really start to hate on the Bears, because it's just been nothing but spoon-fed Bears content, Bears content, Bears content. Because even the NFL and like PFF and all these other channels, whenever the Bears post anything on their social medias about Caleb Williams, every other channel is tweeting, they're sharing it. It's just Bears, Bears, Bears. And I, like, as a Bears fan, I love it. But
Mhm.
if for instance this was another team in the league, I'd be going like, Jesus Christ, we get it, like, come on. So that's
Yeah.
like, I understand from other people kind of maybe being sick of it.
No, that makes sense. I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Oh, world. The last thing I think we should talk about, and this is just absolute silliness. This came out not long after we finished recording last week, but Will Levis,
Yep.
yeah, he had some videos come out, and
Yeah. A couple videos leaked.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, still less embarrassing and less of a stain on the team than Harrison Butker's commencement speech.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean, definitely interesting. And I don't recall seeing him put mayo on anything, so that was good as well. So he's step in the right direction, I'd say.
Yeah. Impressive. Impressive. That's
Yeah.
yeah. If if you're wondering why we were being so cryptid, just go look up Will Levis at the moment, and you'll likely be able to see. And if you don't know at this point, I would like to know what rock you're living under. If you
I mean, if you're not a diehard fan of the NFL, I could see how you missed that because it wasn't in any headlines anywhere.
it's true. Yeah.
That outside of sports talk.
Yes.
And so I could see how some people might have missed it. We're being very vague because the content in question is not exactly YouTube friendly or Spotify friendly necessarily. So we're trying to be a little more careful there in that respect. But yeah, go search up Will Levis if you're curious what exactly it is that we're laughing about.
It was just the weirdest timing too, because apparently, like, while we were recording it, that is when it really popped off. And like, I didn't notice until later where, like, I saw in my timeline Will Levis, Will Levis. I was like, what the, like, what did Will Levis do? Eh,
Right? Did the Titans trade him or
well, it was like one of those things of just all the stuff that we're hearing, with, this player getting in trouble, that player saying this, and you're just
Yeah.
like, son of a bitch, like, Will Levis is in trouble now. So I click on it, and needless to say, I was shocked, and I immediately messaged you afterwards, and my message was, well, I didn't expect to see this today.
Yep.
And I had a good couple of chuckles, but it was just like, oh, he's gonna be getting some high fives from teammates. People are
Probably, yeah.
people are gonna be like, okay,
Yep.
okay, yeah, impressive.
Yep. Oh, 100%, yeah. Yeah, so I mean that was a bizarre thing that did happen last week. Um I mean, on the topic of, legit actual football news, there was one contract re-signing that we saw happen. Nico Collins got paid, which baffled a lot of people, myself included, with how much he got. It's I believe 24.75 million annual average value over 3 years, which is quite a hefty bill for a guy who really has only performed for the one season that we've seen so far, and is on an offense that we don't like. I don't even think he's going to be the number one guy this year with them bringing in Stefan Diggs. You got to assume they're going to have him as wide receiver one, just with the name that's attached to him. And so was interesting to see the Texans throw that much money at Nico Collins. 3-year deal is good because at least that will be complete before they have to pay CJ Stroud, and then they can look elsewhere. But if this doesn't work out and that was just a 1-year shot for Nico Collins, then this will look bad for the Texans.
Yeah, the Texans, they needed to re-sign Nico Collins, and you know what? When you're a player, that's the time to go off, is when you have those types of years, is in that contract season, because that's when you're going to make the money. And if you're the Texans, the last thing that you want to have happen is to look at this guy and go, okay, we're not entirely sure, and he holds out, and then you trade him, and then he is that guy on another team. You're like, oh, okay, we screwed up. But I know what you like. It's kind of like a catch-22, where if you do it and you just don't really know, it's that's
It's
the
a
really
risk
tough
you got to
part.
take sometimes. I definitely understand that. The funny bit that came out from that is then Tyreek Hill started going off, and he was saying things like, I want to stay in Miami. This is where I want to finish my career, so sign me. And
But
myself, along with many others, were like, what do you mean sign me? You are signed there, and you've got 3 more years on your contract. What the hell are you talking about?
yeah, Nico Collins signed his contract earlier in the offseason. The one that happened this week was Jalen Waddle.
What do you mean?
Jalen
Nico
Waddle,
Collins?
yeah, Nico Collins signed his earlier in the offseason, and Jalen Waddle signed his this week.
Oh, okay. I just heard about the Nico Collins signing this week. That
Yeah,
was when yeah.
but I know Jalen Waddle signed a 3-year deal as well this
Yeah.
week, and I think that may have kind of, because they might have been comparing Jaden Waddle and Nico Collins, but I know Nico Collins signed his, I think it was around the draft, or no,
Oh, really?
it was earlier in the offseason. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, I know when it comes to Tyreek Hill, he's looking at the Jalen Waddle contract sign that just happened, and he's like, okay, well, you just paid him, and got to give me my money. And I know the Justin Jefferson
Yep.
contract is happening as well, and it's going to be really interesting to see exactly how much he's going to get, because I've heard reports saying that he kind of wants to be in the realm of like $35 million a season, which, can you blame him? He's the best wide receiver in the NFL. He's been the best wide receiver in the NFL for the last 3 seasons.
Yep.
He doesn't really have a quarterback, but the quarterback that they did draft in JJ McCarthy, he's going to be on a rookie deal. So if you sign him to like a 4-year deal, $35 million a season, by the time that deal's up, and if JJ McCarthy is the guy for the Vikings, well, guess what? JJ's contract is done, and then, or Justin Jefferson's contract is done, and JJ is going to be right up there. So I guess you're kind of trading one big contract for another, but you kind of have to pay Justin Jefferson.
You do. It's getting tough now. Some of these big contracts is like, yeah, you're the best at your position. We got to pay you. But it's becoming this thing where it's like, okay, we're going to pay you, but you have to be able to produce the numbers of 3 guys because we're paying you enough so we can't sign any others. It's reaching that point where so much money invested into one wide receiver, and then you're like, okay, we just got to grab 2 scrubs for wide receiver 2 and 3, and we're expecting you to be putting up the same numbers that 3 guys would be putting up. And that's what gets difficult. That's why I don't like that we're seeing the values go up so high for some of these positions, where it then starts to hinder a team from being able to legitimately build a Super Bowl contender. Like, yeah, you're going to get paid, but you're not going to get a ring. It's becoming that option for a lot of these.
Yeah, and so it's
It's
weird, man. It's
Well, yeah, a lot of these guys are getting to the point where they're going to have to choose one or the other. You can get paid, be the highest paid receiver, running back, quarterback, whatever it is, but you're not winning a Super Bowl. And so if money's more important than the championship, then I'm all for it. But you look at guys like Tom Brady, a big reason he was able to win so many is because he was willing to take a lower pay so that he could be surrounded with more talent, affording that team the ability to be a perennial playoff team, a perennial conference
Super Bowl.
championship contender, and a perennial Super Bowl winner.
Yeah, like I completely get it, but then the flip side to that is, for yourself, if we look at a guy like TJ Watt, he is arguably the best defensive player in the entire NFL, and
Yep.
you're not going to sit back and go like 3 years ago when you had to sign that contract. It was one of those things. If the Steelers came out and said, we signed TJ Watt to the highest contract a defensive player has ever signed, you would have been like, good, because he is the best defensive player. And it's kind of the same thing with the wide receiver. It's the biggest one that I think is the question mark for me in terms of contracts is the quarterback, because we're seeing average quarterbacks get paid superstar money. I'm worried about the Tua contract. I don't think Tua is an elite quarterback that should be getting paid $55 million a year. If you were to pay Tua $35 million a season, I would look at that and go, that is good. That is good for him. That's good for the team. That is where his value should be. If you're paying Tua $55 million a season, he better win the MVP. Like Mahomes, Burrow, Justin Herbert, Josh Allen. Those are the guys you have to compete with. And if you are not able to be at their level, you shouldn't be paid that much.
100%, yeah. But I mean, that then also brings in the problem of, we've always talked about, quarterback is the most important position. So it makes sense that those guys are getting paid that much. And when you talk about Tua getting 35 million and then Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson also getting 35 million, that's where the problems start to come in, because they're going to look at that and go, well, I mean, if that wide receiver is making that much, then I need to be making more. And then you get guys that don't deserve their contracts, like we've talked about ad nauseum this offseason. Daniel Jones, $45 million a year. That is the problem benchmark right now, because all these quarterbacks looking to get paid go, I'm better than Daniel Jones. Why would I take less than him?
Oh, totally.
And
without
that's
a
the
doubt.
issue right now. Yeah, is a couple of bad contracts completely throw the market into turmoil.
Yeah, and my conversation with Tyreek to Tua is, I go, if you were to have someone a quarterback who's let's say a top 20 quarterback in that Miami Dolphins offense, do we think Tua is more important to that offense, or is Tyreek more important? And I would tend to lean more towards Tyreek, because if Tyreek's not there, yes, you have Jalen Waddle, who is a very good wide receiver, but you lose that dynamic. And if you were to stick Geno Smith in that offense as opposed to Tyreek Hill, would we see similar stats? I would probably say, yeah. You throw Baker Mayfield into that, you throw Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, like there's a lot of guys that you can name that you would see similar production from. Now, for instance, if you were to throw a guy like, let's say, Zach Wilson into the spot that the Bears were in last year with their wide receiver group, I don't think he would have done as well as a guy like Justin Fields, but if you were to throw a guy like Joe Burrow in there, he would do better than a lot of the guys, because he's a difference maker. And that's what it kind of boils down to. And it's so weird and so frustrating, but it's going to be something that every single year we're going to be looking at and going like, what the hell? And I don't want to go out there and say that if the Dolphins sign Tua to a $55 million contract, that it's going to screw them as badly as the Giants contract did with Daniel Jones, because I do think Tua is a good quarterback. I think he's a guy that can win you a lot of games in the regular season, get you a playoff win. I don't think he's Super Bowl caliber, especially in the AFC. But you know, if you have a situation for him in, you know, like he can win you a lot of games, but I think if you give him $55 million a season, you are going to be hurting your team in the long run, and that's going to be a big one. But I think we should get into some fantasy wide receiver talk.
Yeah. Yeah, that was sort of all that really happened in the NFL this week, you know, some funny stuff, some real news, but mostly just OTAs. But yeah, let's hop in and get into the big meaty portion of the fantasy.